Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I got an email from Tiffany Lindemuth. Subject line, the portable third temple already built. And in the email, hi, Jared. I just finished watching a podcast that showed up on my feed. I've never seen anything from this YouTuber before, but found much of it interesting. Though I don't agree with everything discussed, it did give me a few aha moments and some things to ponder with spiritual eyes and ears and the Lord's help. There are topics throughout which, if you have eyes to see, may point to things happening, possibly related to the second coming. It's a very long episode, so you might not have time to watch the entire thing, but the part that gave me pause and made me think to email you starts at the 1 hour, 17 minute, and 30-second mark. An outline with timestamps is in the description. During this portion, the two men discuss some things that, if true, could bring to light surprising information regarding Israel, the Third Temple, and other topics you've addressed on your channel. You may have already heard this, and whether it's accurate may not be verifiable or not safe to admit, but I figure if anyone would know or could find out, you would. I appreciate all you do to help others understand and appreciate so many important topics related to the church and preparation for our Savior's return. I love that you are using your gifts to bless others and to help gather Israel. Here's the link to the episode if you'd like to watch. Well, thank you, Tiffany, for the email. This has led me to look into a few things, and there's some work that I've meant to do on my Google Earth map. The link for that map is in the description box of each video, but I'm going to show you what I've updated. And there's some interesting things to think about in this one. Before we go into it, let's go to my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z. On row 326 for Jerusalem, future Jerusalem temple, I have everything that I know about that's been said about that temple. And it's not very much. Probably the most that's been said about it is found in the book of Ezekiel, where he detailed what it's supposed to be like. And it's very detailed. Although I have another quote from Elder James E. Talmage where he said, let me just read this part in red. As to whether the prophet himself considered the design so shown as one to be subsequently realized, or as but a grand yet unattainable ideal, is not declared. Certain it is that the temple of the vision has not yet been builded. So aside from that, I have other quotes that, like I have some quotes that talk about the fact that the Jews will build it, but then I have other quotes talking about the fact that it'd be the church to build it. Both of which I think could be true. The reason why is because I don't think that Jerusalem is limited to just one temple. The New Jerusalem in Jackson County is not just going to have one temple. It's supposed to be a 24 temple complex. So maybe the first temple could be built by the church. Maybe it's the BYU Jerusalem Center. And it's not a typical temple like the ones that we have with baptistries and celestial rooms, but more like the Kirtland Temple, or it's like a headquarters temple. That might be what we're looking at with the BYU Jerusalem Center. And then later on, the temple as described by Ezekiel may be built on the Temple Mount, or it may be something completely different. So just we don't really know a whole lot. Some of the quotes here talk about the fact that it will be on the Temple Mount, but other ones express uncertainty. So I just don't know. And this is what I find. This is what I find the most authoritative is the scriptures, and even more than that, these quotes that, again, I don't just go off of the scriptures because everyone will read a scripture and come away with something different. So I prefer to listen to the words of modern day prophets and apostles, and it doesn't seem like we really know a whole lot about that temple. I'm not going to do it here, but these quotes that I have having to do with the BYU Jerusalem Center are very interesting. You can access this spreadsheet anytime to look at this. The link is in the description box of each video. All right, so the link that she provided in the email takes you to this video. This channel is called Jack Neel. And it's the type of channel that, it's an interview channel. It has people from all walks of life and expertise. And so he's done a couple of videos with this person. Maybe you've seen him, maybe you haven't. I've seen him one time. I think it was on X. His name is Jiang Xueqin. I don't know how to pronounce that. Um, I don't know how I feel about him. I think he's very well spoken. But I feel like you have a certain class of people that get a lot of attention for predicting things. Sometimes it comes in the form of someone who claims to be receiving revelation and they're like a kind of a pseudo prophet. Other times it's people like this. He's not portraying himself as a prophet, but um, he's gained some popularity for predicting certain things. Although it seems like some of his predictions have been wrong, but I'm not calling him a bad person. I don't know much about him, but it may be worth it for you to look at this Wikipedia article. I'll put the link for it in the description box below. You can pause and read this. I just did a quick search on using Grok to see what Grok had to say. And there have been some criticisms of him, but anyway, just that's something to take into account. I'm not trying to dismiss him altogether. So what I'm going to do, thankfully, everything that I want to address is just within this like 2 or 3 minutes right here. This is the transcript to the right. And I want to start with the purple because this is where he talks about a portable temple. After that, we're going to talk about, he addresses different ways that the Al-Aqsa Mosque might get destroyed. And I am definitely not advocating for that. I'm not cheering on anybody that wants to see it destroyed. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are attempts or if something crazy happens. I don't know. I'm just keeping my mind open to all different possibilities. But he talks about this current war with Iran, but especially the time when you had all these ballistic missiles coming from Iran to Israel, both in the 12-day war as well as the current war, and how there was some potential there for that to happen, but for Israel to actually do it and then blame it on Iran. And then in the blue, he talks about archaeological digs and how that might actually lead to the destruction of the Dome of the Rock. Not so much the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's like the main mosque, and sometimes people confuse that with the Dome of the Rock, but the whole thing is the Al-Aqsa compound. He's basically talking about the Dome of the Rock. So we'll start with purple. He says, and so once they've sorry, the transcription is a little bit off because he has an accent. So once they've basically destroyed the Dome of the Rock, they can make the red heifer sacrifice, then build the third temple. I don't know if he's being quite concise here, but they don't have to wait for the temple to be built to do the red heifer sacrifice. They would do it now if they had one that was kosher. They've been trying to do it. They actually did a practice run where they actually burned one, not in Jerusalem, but in Shiloh. I've heard it pronounced both ways. So they could do it now if they had a kosher red heifer. But they're still waiting for that, as well as there's some other considerations. Okay, continuing. Okay, the third temple itself has already been designed and built, brick by brick. There's something called the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, and they have built the third temple. All they have to do is move the third temple from the current location to the mosque location. Okay, so I know, yes, they have the plans for it, and they have a 3D rendering, and they've created models, like miniature models of it, but I don't think that they have it currently constructed or even have all the material to build it. That's where I would disagree with what he's saying here, unless there's something I don't know. I have a spreadsheet. So you may or may not know, I've created a new channel called Jewish Scroll, and I've moved all my like Jewish spreadsheets onto a new spreadsheet for that channel. I haven't made any new videos for a while because I've been busy with visits from out of town and summer activities and just YouTube, but I'm going to get back to it. But I have this spreadsheet called Temple Preparation. It's a timeline of everything that I've researched, that like all the different steps that various groups have taken to try and make the third temple a reality and to prepare for it. Okay, so if we're talking about they've already created the third temple, he seems to be saying that they have all the material, all the stone blocks, and everything that would be needed for the temple. It's like just lying in pieces somewhere. I don't think that's the case. If we go back to the year 2007, right here, that's when we have a story that came out, or I have a more recent story that said that that's the year that they created the cornerstone for the third temple. Let's look at that story really quick. Written by my friend Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, who I've interviewed a few times on my channel. This article is from April 15th of last year. Here it shows, some of the Jewish priests, otherwise known as the Kohanim, the descendants of Aaron of the tribe of Levi. And then here you have Levites that would also serve in the temple. At this part of the article, it says, quote, 18 years ago, we created a cornerstone for the third temple, Rabbi Halevi explained. The High Court rejected our appeal to bring the cornerstone to the Temple Mount or to even march around the Temple Mount with the stone, manifesting the prophecy of the stone that is rejected by the builders. From Psalms 118, verse 22, which we would read that scripture differently. That it has to do with the Jews rejecting Christ, that he is the chief cornerstone. And when he came, there are those that rejected him. There were some that did accept him as Messiah, but many others of the Jews did not accept him. Continuing. But we caught the attention of the Shin Bet, Israel's internal security service. They were surprisingly supportive and enthusiastic, but they told us that if we wanted to take it further and bring a Korban Pesach, or a Paschal lamb, we would need permission from the Israeli police. Okay, so 2007, they had a cornerstone, and then let's scroll up on my timeline here. If you get to this part, May 5th, 2022, we get this story. This is also Israel 365 News, also written by Adam. Jews begin building third temple on Israel Independence Day. And you can see stones and chisels. They're actually making stone blocks for the temple. While most Israelis were celebrating Independence Day by having family barbecues, a small group gathered in Old City of Jerusalem and began chipping away at stones, preparing them to be used to build the prophesied third temple. And it just goes on to show that they've, even though they had a cornerstone from 2007, clearly at the time that this was written, just one more time, this was 2022, they definitely didn't have enough stones to build the temple. Here's Joshua Wander on my other channel called Jewish Scroll. We've talked about him. He was making it seem in an interview that he did with Adam on Adam's channel that there was a very real possibility that they would be allowed to go and do a sacrifice on the Temple Mount, maybe undercover, maybe during the night or something like that, that the conditions are such right now that there's been enough influence exerted on the Temple Mount to where the powers that be would allow that to happen. It doesn't seem like it did, but he's a big time Third Temple activist and a friend of Adam. But it has like it has video here of him chiseling away at this stone. And if we go back to my timeline and go up just a little bit more, July 1st, 2024. And by the way, all my references are over here in column M. So if we go to July 1st, 2024, we have the last one that I want to show you when it comes to if they have a portable temple. We have this Israeli politician carved stones to build third temple. And it shows this guy, and there's a stone that I don't know if it's all the way done. I guess if it was, maybe it wouldn't be there, but it has like this ridge, right? I don't know what's going on, but he's here to, help chisel stones for the temple. So I don't think, look at this depiction of the third temple right here. That's going to take a lot of that's going to take a lot of stones, not to mention the pillars. I don't know if those pillars would, I guess they probably wouldn't be marble, but it's not just stones. You have other materials that would be needed for the third temple. I'm sure some parts of it would have gold, I think, but needless to say, it's a lot of material. And looking at these stories, I don't think they haven't convinced me that they've chiseled away enough stones to have a completed third temple ready to go. It just needs to be assembled. I don't think that that's the case at all, unless it's some other group, which I don't think so. Because if we go back to this, he identified the Temple Institute. So I'd have to say no. The Temple Institute does not have enough to build the third temple. They'd have to probably have a really big storage area for all that. Now, as far as a portable temple, there is one aspect of truth to that, and it's this in column H for new altar. I have noted the mention of 4 different altars that the Temple Institute has constructed for use in the third temple. And those are portable. So we're looking at Israel 365 News again. This is an article from November 29th, 2018. Here's a picture of the Kohanim, the Jewish priests. Now, this altar is obviously made of cardboard. That's not it. But it does say, the Sanhedrin was gonna have this ceremony to dedicate a new altar, and it says the altar is currently in the form of loose stone blocks ready to be transported to the Temple Mount and stored in a manner that will enable them to be transported and assembled at a moment's notice. This is not the only article that has said that, and I think that has been said about some of these other altars. So they do have what they would need, according to Jewish law, to start doing sacrifices on the Temple Mount with a proper kosher altar. Like I said, Josh Wander, he was talking about the possibility of doing it this year during Passover, in that they would have had an altar, presumably this altar or maybe some other altar that would be considered kosher. So this is an interesting thought, because if we're talking about the temple that needs to be in Jerusalem, if it has to be constructed, and it seems like it does, at least in some way, shape, or form, before Christ comes. Again, I feel like my main theory is that the BYU Jerusalem Center, at the dictation of the Lord, could be dedicated to be a temple. The only agreement that we have with the Israeli government is that it's not supposed to be used for missionary work. Um, and I don't know that it needs to be made public. The church would never do anything that would go against Israeli law. But that's my main thing is the BYU Jerusalem Center. But maybe it could be something like this: the Jews themselves maybe don't construct the entire temple, but maybe the point will come where they are allowed to go up to the Temple Mount and on a certain spot offer up sacrifice. Maybe the entire thing doesn't have to be constructed. I don't know. But we have this. We have these portable altars, which would allow them to do some of the temple rituals. And then in this Jerusalem Post article, you have this picture of the altar that the other one was talking about. This is the stone altar. Okay, so we got that. And then we've had many other things that they've done to prepare for the third temple. There have been a bunch of sacrifice attempts, and more or less, it's something that's attempted every year, at least going back to like 2009. So that's something that people try to do every year, it seems. And then there's just been a bunch of other things. There have been reenactments of different temple rituals, including like live reenactments of like sacrificing lambs. They've actually gone that far. So yeah. Okay, so let's go back to this transcript here, and let's read the green part. He says, so let's go into what we know about Al-Aqsa so far. There was a Jewish rabbi who was very well known in Israel, but last June, during the 12-day war between Israel, United States, and Iran, he said basically, wow, this war would be the perfect opportunity to stage a false flag operation where the Iranian missile is flying over Al-Aqsa Mosque. If we demolish it and we blame it on the Iranians, then the Persians and the Arabs would go to war against each other, and we could laugh our heads off. What a great way to resolve the conflict in the Middle East. Okay, so that's one piece of evidence. Another piece of evidence is the idea of the red heifer. The Jews, the Messianic Jews, which I think he misspoke there, because when we're talking about Messianic Jews, we're talking about Jews that have converted to Christianity, but they have their own. There's like this, I don't know if it's considered one single denomination, but you have like a denomination of Christians who are Jewish, and they maintain some of their practices, I think, but they've accepted Christ. Anyway, the Jews want to rebuild Solomon's temple, build a third temple, but to do so, you need. Okay, sorry. He just goes into the red heifers. I didn't mean to highlight all that. Okay, so let's talk about that. This rabbi that he's referring to is this person right here. This is Middle East Monitor. Israeli rabbi, destroy Al-Aqsa with missile and blame it on Iran. And then there's like an Instagram post by Middle East Monitor. I watched it. It's in English, and I think it is him talking. I was watching his mouth and his lips, and it does seem like it's him that's talking. I don't know if it's being taken out of context. Like, he did say that, but it didn't sound like he was like serious or seriously proposing it as an actionable plan. It seemed like something that he was just saying off the cuff, although very provocative words, and nothing that I would support. But there's this other article by TRT World, The Zionist Agenda, Could Israel Target Al-Aqsa and Pin Blame on Iran? And this has some interesting things to say. Quote, honestly, this is the most favorable moment they have had. Middle East expert Zahid Tubakour tells TRT World. Quote, Israel could launch a ballistic missile at Al-Aqsa Mosque through its Mossad agents in Iran, destroy the mosque, and then pin the blame on Iran, she says. Okay, so that's an interesting concept. Now, that has not happened so far. This article is from June of last year. So that was during the 12-day war, or around that time. I can't remember the exact dates. But we've had the 12-day war, and then we've had this current war, where at the beginning, Iran did launch a lot of ballistic missiles at Israel. Some have come pretty close to the Temple Mount. In fact, some shrapnel has fallen on the Temple Mount. We're going to look at that in just a minute. But that's an interesting idea. Mossad agents in Iran somehow influencing, being able to program one of the missiles to go to Al-Aqsa. That's an interesting idea. Core argues that in a climate where religious narratives and biblical allusions have become central to the rhetoric of Israeli leaders since October 7th, 2023, it's no longer meaningful to frame Israel's actions in Gaza as merely political or strategic. She believes striking the holy site in the fog of war would offer Israel the perfect cover to advance its goals, while simultaneously turning regional outrage toward Iran. In a viral video that resurfaced amid the ongoing hostilities, an extremist Israeli rabbi named Yosef Mizrahi is heard laying out the very scenario. Quote, if we're up to me, I would bomb Al-Aqsa Mosque and say it was an Iranian missile to provoke a conflict between Arabs and Iranians. He says in a word-for-word translation from Hebrew. Again, it didn't seem like it was a translation. It seemed like it was actually him talking, unless I don't know. Historians say there is little reason to believe that a plan as such would be out of bounds for those seeking long-term strategic gains. Quote, in such a scenario, they would kill two birds with one stone, further deepen the existing Sunni-Shia divide, and begin conditioning the Muslim world to the idea that Al-Aqsa could one day be destroyed. End quote. Notes, Zechariah Kursan, the head of the History Department of Faith Sultan Mehmet Vakif University. Wow. While Israeli officials often insist they have no intention of changing the status quo at the mosque premises, since at least 2019, they have allowed Jewish prayer at the site under police protection. The Israeli government also supports institutions that actively pursue this vision. Among them is the Temple Mount movement. And that's something that I'm trying to keep track of here. There have been a lot of developments when it comes to the Temple Mount and what's being permitted there, including prayer. One of the more recent things is somehow there was an agreement reached to where you can now officially pray out loud as long as you have a specific printout prayer card that's produced by a specific, synagogue or organization. And now that's allowed. There have been Jews that have worn tefillin, which are like those black boxes and like the straps that go around their arms. They're starting to wear those on the Temple Mount. They're starting to do full body prostrations on the Temple Mount, which I think is a type of prayer, or it may just be an act of reverence. I'm not sure. But I think it is associated with prayer. There was a Rosh Hashanah observance, like a full observance of like Rosh Hashanah, or like a part of a Rosh Hashanah service that's been done. There's been more and more and more and more. So that is true. Let's see. Let's move on. Okay, so I have finally put on my Google Earth map these different sites that have been hit by either warheads or fragments of Iranian ballistic missiles. And it could also include fragments of like interceptor missiles, like Israeli interceptor missiles. And these are the sites. So here's the Temple Mount, here's the Al-Aqsa Mosque right here, and then to the north you have the Dome of the Rock. And you had fragments that landed here on the Temple Mount itself, and in this kind of like square area in which the Dome of the Rock is located. And I looked at the photos. I'm going to show you the photos in just a minute. And I think I found the right spot where on the map where it actually took place. So for example, you have this one right here. So this is a picture of the Temple Mount, and they have these traffic cones and like I guess where fragments fell. I looked at these like domes here in the background, and I think I have the right spot. So you have that. The first one, sorry, that was on March 16th of this year. Actually, the first one was this in a place called Mitchell Park. I think there's a part of it that's also called the Sultan's Pool. But this is, let me just click on this line. So this is about 900 meters from the Western Wall. This is where an actual warhead landed. And this was the first day of this new war, February 28th. So you had this that landed pretty dang close to the Temple Mount. And that's what this is right here. Iranian missile warhead falls less than a kilometer from Temple Mount. Okay, and then you also had, let's see, let me look at the dates. You had this one that landed really, really close to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which you can see right here. And I do think that this is the rooftop. I looked at these pictures, and I looked it up. I looked at like, here's like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the big blue dome, and then there's a smaller dark dome, and then there's this like tower right here. And I looked at this, and I think it's this view right here. I think here's the tower, here's that smaller dark dome. And then you see the red roof, and in the picture you can see how like from this point of view, the roof goes forward and then goes to the left, but then it's obscured by like this wall right here. So I think that's what we're looking at right here. Here's that wall. It goes forward and to the left. So I'm pretty sure this is where it landed. I'm not an expert, but I think that is right. But very, very close to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay, so the point is whether Israel or some bad actor decides to do this, or whether it actually happens by mistake, it's just legitimately a mistake. I think it is plausible either way. I'm not going to go into it now, but there have been some pretty extreme elements in the Israeli government, notably Ben-Gvir. We've talked about him a number of times, and he has been really belligerent, like to the nth degree. I should make a spreadsheet just for him and all of his antics, but he is very in your face about all this. He definitely wants the third temple, but there have been some others too. I can't remember his name. I think it's like Smotrick or I don't know. It's something like that. I think he's over. I don't know. I can't remember, but he has said some interesting things lately about Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as the West Bank. And I've seen a lot of aggressive things. Let's just put it that way, but I'm not going to go into all that here. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what actually happens. as always. Here's the other one. This is, let's see, footage catches moment. Iran missile fragment struck Jerusalem's old city. And that's this one right here. And I'm also confident that this is the general area because it's within the city wall of the old city. And just looking at the footage, it seems like it's here. And it's the right distance. The article talks about the fact that it's about 400 meters away from the Western Wall. And this is kind of the only locations that fits that description. So these are the four areas that I know of. Okay. Now let's go to the last part of this transcript that I want to cover. He says, also, we know that there have been archaeological digs under the Al-Aqsa Mosque these past 2 years. So if you want a controlled demolition, right? Well, that's what you do. You pretend it's an archaeological dig. You implant explosives under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and then you pretend it's an Iranian missile, and then you blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and then problem solved, right? Now, this does not seem right. I feel like I've kept on top of archaeological digs pretty well in Israel, especially in Jerusalem. Sometimes there's some really interesting stories. But when it comes to the Temple Mount, the Israelis and Jews are not allowed to do anything with archaeology under the Temple Mount. That's off limits. There have been archaeological digs around it. So let me show you what I can confirm. I think he's way off on this one. So first, I want to point you to this article. This is Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. And I'm not really going to read from this, but it just points out the fact that the archaeological digs are near the Temple Mount, not under it. And that's an important distinction because I don't think that you could do very much damage from the places where there is archaeological activity. It would have to be like directly under, I believe. I'll save this one for last. That's out of place. So you have this. This is Temple Mount sifting project. And let me just tell you a little bit about that. You may already know, but it says the project began in 1999. There were illegal renovations on the Temple Mount by the Muslims, and they disposed over 9,000 tons of dirt mixed with invaluable archaeological artifacts. And the artifacts were in the dirt were dumped as garbage in the nearby Kidron Valley. So if we go to the map, right, here's the Temple Mount, and then the Kidron Valley is over here. Let me do this. The Kidron Valley is the valley between the Temple Mount and the Mount of Olives over here. I don't know. Maybe I should have looked this up. I don't know where the sifting project is taking place, but it seems like it'd probably be over here somewhere. I don't know. So you have that going on, but if it's over here somewhere in the Kidron Valley, or even just anywhere other than under the Temple Mount, I don't think you could do much damage from there. So I'm not really concerned about that. You have this City of David archaeological site. And this webpage goes through just like some of the different findings. One of which is really, really interesting to me. Earlier on, I don't know, I can't remember how many years ago, but at one point, they were calling this Melchizedek's temple. You'll remember that Melchizedek was in Salem. In Salem later became Jerusalem. And he was a high priest. And so, of course, he would have offered up sacrifices and probably would have had some kind of temple structure, I imagine. Here's a video showing some of the inside of what they now call the Matseva temple. And you have this peculiar room that have these symbols on the floor, and they don't know what these symbols are for. They've proposed the idea that they could be for like for stands that hold up animals that they're preparing to get to sacrifice, so that the stands don't fall over. And I don't think that that's right. Uh, this should be somewhat familiar to you, I think, as a member of the church, and if you've been to the temple. But you have these. Here's another video. This is like the lead. If I remember right, this is the lead archaeologist, and these are some interesting videos. So you have this in the city of David, and let's go back to my map. The city of David is, let's go to this view instead. Yeah. The city of David is basically this area right here. It's just this like little small sliver of land, but it is not underneath the Temple Mount by any means. I think, well, I did a search one time. I think this might be the area right here, actually. I think this might be the area, but this is where it's at. So it's hard to think that any damage can be done to the Temple Mount from the city of David. Oh yeah, here's some more pictures inside the Matseva temple, or the Melchizedek's temple. You have this altar right here. And this is more the type of altar that you would like kneel at, rather than one that you would put an animal on to sacrifice. So it's this type of altar is called a matseva. So that's in one of the rooms, and then you have this area where you would actually do burnt sacrifices, and then you have the room that has the marks in the floor. So I don't know. I don't know of any other digs that are happening around the Temple Mount, but I'm pretty sure there aren't any that the Israeli archaeologists are permitted to do any sort of excavation underneath the Temple Mount. So I think he's off on that one. He said within the last 2 years, but I searched. I can't find, I don't know what he's talking about. So I think he's wrong. The one thing that is interesting about underneath the Temple Mount, I'm just going to end on this. There's this interesting article on Israel 365. Is underground construction under Jerusalem preparing for Third Temple? No, but, and it talks about this this guy that's an architect, Philip Gilchrist from New Zealand. He was visiting Jerusalem, and when he went to the tunnels underneath the Temple Mount, it says he was sure these were the beginnings of construction of the Third Temple, because this part says, when Gilchrist viewed the construction, he was shocked. I was sure that I was seeing the beginning of construction on the Third Temple. As an architect, I know that if I was charged with the project, that is precisely the way I would have set about doing it. You don't start at the top, you begin with making the foundations strong, which is really interesting. Temple Mount chairman Yaakov Heyman would have preferred Gilchrist's conclusion to be accurate. He knew the construction surrounding the Temple Mount was ongoing and not connected to any greater messianic vision, but as a professional building project manager, he understood Gilchrist's confusion. Quote, the Muslims, are always digging there for archaeological reasons and occasionally for preservative construction. It is frequently the cause of controversy. It is true that if construction for the Third Temple were to begin, it would probably look something like this, shoring up the foundation. So that's an interesting idea. So they've been working on the foundation. It sounds like it might be part of regular maintenance. I don't know, but maybe it's a more extensive project. But whatever the case, if there is going to be a big third temple there, maybe this is the beginnings of it. And they've been working on it, not for the purposes of a third temple, but just they're maintaining the property with working on the foundation. So, yeah. So I don't think that anything's going to happen as a result of archaeology being done underneath the Temple Mount, because I don't think any is being done by Israelis. These sites could be hit by a missile. I think it's unlikely, but it could happen. And then as far as the Israelis actually doing it and then blaming it on Iran, I guess that is possible. It would take some really, really bad actors to do something like that, but I guess it's not impossible. But anyway, those are my thoughts on this. We'll just have to see how things play out and not hope for anything bad. The Lord is in control. We don't support violence. We don't support breaking the law, but we'll just see how things play out. And I'll talk to you guys later.